This is a very unique institute and team. This is an institute that studies not just life and nature, but how to live well for absolutely everyone in this world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the second International Pedagogical E-Conference on the topic of education in the era of change, transformation without destruction and conflict. My name is Gianni. I have a master's degree in the science of education. I've been a teacher in Washington and New York. And I'm very honored to be here for this important event and to be your moderator. I hope everyone can participate in this conference in a spirit of mutual respect and intellectual curiosity and take away valuable insights and new perspectives on the role of education in our changing world. So thank you all for being here. We hope you will enjoy it, and thank you for your participation. We remind you that the conference is available in English and Russian directly on Zoom. You can post your questions on YouTube and in the Zoom chat. They'll be answered after the presentations by the speakers, or you can share your questions and comments to the following email address, which is being posted in the chats. It's conference.iwri@gmail.com. We will have a 10-minute break from 16:55 to 17:05 Central European Time, which will be 17:55 and 18:05 IST and 10:55 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And the conference will end at 19:15 Central European Time, which will be at 1:15 p.m. Eastern. For the program, please check our website, www.globaliwri.com/conferences. The link is being posted in our live chats now. Again, please feel free to post your questions in the live chat during the presentation. We'll do our utmost to answer them all. And now it's my honor to introduce our director, Professor Efraim Eliav, who will be delivering the opening speech for this conference. Professor Eliav is Chemia Research Professor in the field of atomic physics and relativistic quantum chemistry at Tel Aviv University. He specializes in precision calculations of the physical properties of heavy atomic molecular systems necessary for both testing fundamental physical theories and applied research and development. He's published over 140 articles in leading scientific journals, including Nature and others of that caliber. Laureate of more than 25 international grants and prizes, he's worked as a visiting professor at 15 leading universities in the USA, Canada, Europe, Japan, and China. He's been a speaker at over 50 international conferences and seminars. Please join me in welcoming Professor Ephraim Eliav.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for this kind introduction. And let me share my screen now. Just a moment. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, esteemed educators, distinguished guests, and passionate advocates for the integral education, I'm really honored and thrilled to welcome each and every one of you to the second International Educational Conference organized by the Integral World Research Institute. Our institute is dedicated to advancing the integral approach in science and education, which emphasizes a holistic, synergetic understanding of reality. Through fostering a collective integrative consciousness, we strive to guide our civilization towards harmony and peace, enabling humanity to function as unified superorganism. As we convene today, we stand united in our shared mission to reshape the educational landscape, embracing a more comprehensive and holistic approach to teaching and learning. General education is a powerful movement aimed at harmonizing harmonization and the intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual dimensions of human development. By nurturing the whole person, we are better equipped our students to face the challenges of ever-evolving world, empowering them to lead lives of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. Over the next 2 days, we will have the unique opportunity to learn from leading experts in the field, engage in truth-provoking discussions and collaborative discussions on different ideas to transform our classroom and communities. Let us explore this opportunity with open minds and open heads, confident that our collective efforts will leave a lasting impact on the lives of our children, families, friends, students, and the future of the society as a whole. We are proud to welcome to our conference well-of presenters from Turkey, Israel, United States, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Malaysia, representing diverse fields such as academia, teaching, medicine, engineering, journalism, and the arts. For more information about our Institute's integral educational projects, please visit our website at globalivri.com. Once again, a warm welcome to the Integral Education Conference. May this event spark inspiration and enlightenment as we work together to build a bright and more inclusive future for all of us. Thank you, and the best wishes for a successful and enriching experience for all conference participants.
Thank you, Professor, for that inspiring opening speech. We remind you all that the conference is available in English and Russian directly on Zoom. For the full conference schedule, please check our website, www.globaliwri.com/conferences. The link is being posted in the chats. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our first presentation of the day with the title Integral Thinking for the Development of the Education System of Society, which has been prepared by Professor Valentina Yognaeva. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, she can't be present with us today, but has requested us to read her presentation. Ms. Kathy Perello from the education team will read for us.
Thank you. Integral Thinking for the Development of Society's Educational System by Professor Valentina Yognaeva. As an introduction, it is important to emphasize the significance of methodological reflection as a necessary behavior style for modern researchers, practitioners, and managers. I wish all conference participants an interesting and productive time. Let us now turn to a summary of the topic. In science, there was up until a certain point a dissection of the world perceived by the observing subject. Science itself rose from this experience in both its experimental, practical, and abstract speculative forms. All modern scientific knowledge is built from these basic components. Nowadays, the boundaries of perception of this structure have become blurred and are practically impossible to represent systematically by humans. However, I dare to affirm that the solution to this issue is not directly related to technology or artificial intelligence solutions. Rather, it requires a change in our attitude towards scientific and technological progress, and in how we intend to use its achievements. This requires a general purification of a change in the observer's position in order to see clearly the image of this scientific knowledge and fill it with new meaning. The concept and definition of integration form the basics of integral thinking. Integration is commonly understood as the process of creating an inseparably interconnected and unified whole. However, despite the popularity of the integral approach, it still remains outside of the public consciousness. The development of the ability to think integrally should be viewed as the goal of applying the integral approach in both the theory and practice of knowledge and activity. Mastery of integral thinking involves solving several tasks. 1, coming to a common understanding of the basic content of the concept of integration. 2, forming stable thought forms regarding the use of an integral approach. 3, studying its basic parameters, describing the basic principles of implementing an integral approach in research and activity. A multi-aspect analysis of the definitions of the concepts of integration allowed us to identify its essential features, which are associated with the unification into a whole of any separate parts of systematic formations. At that time, the presence of processuality, processes of separation, addition, renewal, and statics, states of unity, integrity, and completeness is revealed in it. In comparison with the oppositional concept of disintegration, the vector of integration, the direction of the process, is revealed, which is associated with the unification into a single whole of previous heterogeneous parts and elements, or their separation, fragmentation into parts or elements. That is, it can be assumed that the vector, the direction, can be positive or negative, plus or minus. We relate these characteristics to the nominative ones. Thus, in order to consider any research or practice as integral, we must start from some common concepts, conditions, principles, parameters that characterize it as integral. During the methodological reflection on the scientific concept of integration, we were able to expand, reproduce, and supplement the parameters that describe the phenomena of integration. In particular, systematic characteristics and dependencies of integration were identified. Belonging to a certain system, physical, biological, and any social. Function allows us to consider the relationship between integration and the system. Goal allows us to clarify what the integration, unification, or change of the system state is relative to, from amorphous to integrity. Vector, this characteristic allows us to consider the movements of integration, the direction towards which state it occurs, towards integration or disintegration, which is related to their essential development. And result. The result of integration is the emergence of some integrity, which acquires new properties and relationships between updated elements. The procedural characteristics of integration, which included phase states and stages of development, formed a special block for the study of integration. The parameters we have identified allow us to expand our understanding of integration as a methodological construct of thinking. They make it possible to consider phenomena of integration as a process and states that are in resonance with the universal law of development, which tends toward achieving an equilibrium state of all parts of the system within and its external relations with other systems. The result of this process is also called integrity, harmony. Our understanding of integration is supplemented by the inclusion of its spatial characteristics known as horizontal, diagonal, internal, and external integration. In our systematic consideration of integration parameters, we also include the configuration of the shape of organized system elements, integration levels, and parameters of the integration process environment. In this context, physical, informational, biological, physiological, psychological, and social environments all were studied. Thus, the methodological feasibility of applying integral methodology as a universal scientific tool for knowledge and practice in the fields of economics, technology, management, medicine, institutional spheres, and international relations was examined. The significance of integration parameterization lies in the fact that the structure of the conceptual field of integration enables us to form stable psychological structures of our thinking regarding integration phenomena. Correspondingly, the method of an integral approach can be more clearly defined through integral methodology. As an example of a developed methodology, a step-by-step algorithm for studying and analyzing integration is proposed, which includes the following steps. Step 1, determining the nature of the object under study, its systemic features relative to the conditions of its existence and functioning. Step 2, establishing the boundaries of the studied system or its parts. Step 3, determining the vector of integration consideration or its imperative goal. Step 4, establishing the systematic form within which integration processes are carried out. Step 5, establishing the structural and functional arrangement of the considered system or form. Step 6, establishing the parameters, characteristics of the system and its elements. Step 7, identifying the elements of interaction within the system and beyond. Step 8, establishing the characteristic stages of integration and the features of their implementation in the corresponding conditions of existence of systems, their forms and functions, with respect to synchronizing development processes to achieve the target vector. And last of all, step 9, establishing indications of the processes regarding the achievement of the goals of system integrity. As a conclusion, we suggest several propositions about the use of an integrated approach to the sphere of upbringing and education. All that has been stated above can and should be fully applied in the sphere of upbringing and education and implemented in pedagogical practice. The functional purpose of integration in this sphere is also intended to ensure the integrity and stability of the education system. Any systemic parts of education can be included in the integrated analysis, such as upbringing, preschool education, school, university, informal education institutes, etc. There can be individual participants in the process of upbringing and education: students, teachers, parents, educators, education managers, stakeholders, etc. One can only speak about an integrated education system with the consideration and description of the relevant parameters of the integrated matrix of the educational environment and the establishment of integral connections between the parts and agents of the education system. Specifically, the systematic parameters of integration in education require their own description of the educational environment. These include goals, systemic interaction in educational structures of different levels, groups of participants in educational communication, professional personnel, theory, methodology, educational content of different purposes, educational technologies also. Management, education standards, their synchronization relative to the goal and result of upbringing and education is the main condition for ensuring the normal functioning of the educational system and the development of humanity. Overall, the implementation of the functional purpose of integration in the activities, cognition, and interaction of people occurs through positive convergence of thinking and perception of reality. The integrity of concepts about integration is part of the worldview basis for the further program of synthesis of rational and sensory knowledge in the conditions of the formation of integral social consciousness. Professor, suggests that the conference participants pay attention to the fact that the proposed approach to the integrated methodology and practice of their application fundamentally changes the understanding of processes and conditions relative to common interpretations, such as integral medicine, integral education, integral management, and integral marketing, etc. Professor thanks you for your attention.
And thank you for that fascinating speech. And thank you, Kathy, for reading it. I should have given this background before, but I wanted to give a little background on Professor Yognaeva. She's a teacher, a doctor of historical sciences, and a professor with a remarkable record of accomplishments in her field. She's authored nearly 200 scientific publications. She's the founder and leader of her own scientific school. She's supervised the preparation and defense of 4 doctoral theses and 20 PhD theses. She's also served as the head of the international project Economic and Other Knowledge in the context of transformation of international social activities management and communication for the UNESCO Department of the National Technical University of Agriculture in Ukraine and Czech Republic. And she's participated in several international research projects in Denmark and Poland. Her scientific and professional interests revolve around the problems of social interaction, mediology, and theoretical and methodological problems of upbringing and education. Her research is based on universal approaches to identifying proportionality and harmony in the development processes in the nature-human society system. Her work also includes the concept of social interaction as a system-forming element in the components of human life, activity, and cognition, as well as the description of the media space as an integration, limiting state of the communication subsystem of society. And with that, I'm going to invite everyone, if you had any questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and write to the professor at the email we're posting in the chat. It's conference.iwri@gmail.com. So again, those will be posted in the chat and the professor will answer later. So we're moving on to our next speaker, Professor Vladimir Krasnov. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Krasnov. Professor Krasnov is an accomplished scholar in the field of pedagogy and medicine with a PhD in pedagogics and a Doctor of Medical Science. He's served as assistant professor, full professor, and is now an academic of the Higher Education Academy of Sciences in the Ukraine. Since 2016, Professor Krasnov has been the head of the Pedagogy, Psychology, Medical, and Pharmaceutical Law Department, and he supervised a number of important research projects. These include the initiative devoted to the formation of key professors and general humanitarian competencies of a doctor, which has explored the pedagogical, psychological, and legal aspects of medical education. Professor Krasnov's research interests span a broad range of topics, including the application of informational technologies in medicine and education, knowledge transition and control principles, didactics, pedagogical psychology, distance education, and ontology of knowledge. We're honored to have him with us today to share his insights and expertise with all of you. The title of his presentation is Education and Social Consciousness. What kind of society are we building? And so I'll pass it on now to Professor Krasnov.
Да. Дорогие коллеги, дорогие
Dear friends, dear participants of the conference, thank you for the introduction. I would like to offer this topic of my presentation. It was announced. You can see my presentation. The topic is education and social consciousness. And I would like, together with you, to go deeper into the topic, why the answer to this question is very important to us. And I would like to start with the public consciousness and why that is important. Because the public consciousness, it's all our human qualities that reflect the surrounding world, and not just reflect it. It forms the environment around us according to the states and characteristics that we have. There's Emil Durkheim talked about various consciousness, levels of consciousness. It starts with the public consciousness, and through the public consciousness, each individual perceives the surrounding world. And now we talk about the social being and social consciousness. Our life, the social and economical life, is our being. We can change our environment and the consciousness will change. And nevertheless, the progressive ideas could change our consciousness and life around us. But also public consciousness could be behind our social being. For example, when socialism left some of the countries, nevertheless, some of the people there still live with those social ideas that were adopted by those countries. And they attract to one another. And the law of equivalence, that attraction is the condition of the life of society and it basis for their spiritual consciousness. And there's a voice of public opinion forms their consciousness, and it amplifies the ties of the individual with the society. And a small part of the society, they also strive to wholeness and cohesiveness of the society, and they develop a new consciousness. Social consciousness create a moral social environment and force people to accept new ways of acting and thinking. That's why the social consciousness is very important, because it defines the human's decisions. So the sense of lack of norm and anomaly in society, what is this? Anomaly in society is in the sense of transition and crisis, when old norms and values cease to operate and the new ones have not yet been established. And the new society starts to approve false ideas and false way of developing. And it's even considered as criminal. And then there's a new generation of new elements of public consciousness. Society is the ones that, if the society doesn't want to change, and then the society develops, and it brings to the division and specializations of labor. And as a result of that labor, the various forms, professional groups form, and they continue to serve new ideas. Those new structures, they start develop their new norms and rules of behavior. and they start to approach them consciously.
общественным сознанием
And between individual and public consciousness,
появляется групповое сознание,
we see that the group consciousness enters it.
индивидуальным и общественным. А общественное, оно в сознании индивида начинает это
Public consciousness
все дальше, и в определенный момент
starts to go more on the background of individual consciousness, according to his
в обществе вот
defined activity.
то есть начинает ослабляться нормативная система.
So the system of norms and rules start to get weaker, and it leads to misunderstanding and miscoordination of the groups.
Дальше Дюркгейм предложил такие гипотезы.
Then Durkheim's offered
Специализированные
these
группы, которые образовалась
theories.
эти специализированные группы
Those special groups,
в некий агент влияния,
they could be transformed into some agents of influence on the society,
индивидов, которые входят в эту группу,
that not that advocate for the interests of individuals,
вынуждена
but this social group,
так как общество находится в
because the society is kind of like
такая
moved on the background and in balance,
вынуждена
this social group
вырабатывать нормативно-социальные
has to develop
вырабатывать нормы
norms and rules for the whole society.
и защита этих норм
But mechanism of the
в источник
establishing of those norms,
мышления людей.
they start influence consciousness of people.
Такие элементы
In other words,
сознания, как
those elements
социальная
of social consciousness as moral sense, social control, sanction systems,
прежнего типа, они должны куда-то
as the structure starts to break down,
специализированная группа
all those qualities need to move somewhere.
начинает получать новую жизнь,
So those characteristics start
и Эмиль Дюркгейм
embody new life and new ideas.
должна осуществить именно личность.
So it
За личность
specifically individual
свою работу
has to
в расширении
step
своего индивидуального
ahead and expand not only the individual consciousness,
на сознание общественное.
but also influence consciousness of the society.
Хотел предложить промежуточный пока что вывод.
And so this is
Лидер,
transitional
лидер
conclusion. The leader creates a group,
устойчивым сознанием,
and that leader has a stable consciousness.
то есть такая группа стает более надежной и привлекательной.
It's more
Далее
sustainable and more
группа
established group.
изменений общественного
That group could serve as an agent
при этом группа
of changes in public consciousness.
обладающим групповым сознанием, которое
And if that group has advanced ideas,
этим обществом
so all the society
общество
starts
приобретать признаки
to adapt all those ideas as very attractive.
современного мира и системы
Now let's talk about the problems of the contemporary world.
ВУКа, которая
In the 90s,
писать
there was a concept of VUCA was born,
это общество характеризуется проблемой существующего общества, существующего
that society
об этом говорили,
is characterized by certain problems,
полного отсутствия ориентиров, такие как
lack of
неопределенность,
orienteers,
неоднозначность,
lack of
аббревиатура.
guidance.
И в этом обществе
And in that society,
нужно жить и принимать решения.
we need to live and make decisions.
Вот этого неравновесного, оно
So the state of that imbalanced society influence everybody who live in it.
было понятно, что отдельными научными направлениями
So we understand
этого не решить.
that
Интеграция направлений. Поэтому в
single streams in society cannot solve the problem of the whole society.
предложили интегрировать
So
4 ключевых научных области.
there was 4 integral social parts:
В одну единую супердисциплину
the social humanitarian technologies, nanos,
нашего
cognitive, bio, and intra.
дисциплину были добавлены еще и социально
So it was added, social and humanitarian technologies were added to that. The idea was not to find new ideas in development of the society, but to solve the problems that arise today. So we're talking about reaction strategy. In turn, how the world reacts to that. So the experts in that area, they don't just sit and wait for the solution. They start the Paris Agreement on climate change in the World Health Organization, Global Health Strategy, and UNESCO. They have the Education 2030 Agenda, Education for Sustainable Development Strategy. I think it's good. And also in Incheon Declaration, there were 17 fundamental goals for humanity that have been identified, and about quality, equality, tolerance. There were measurable indications related to access to education and to help developing countries, help the humanity that's tried to catch up. And I like this global citizenship as understanding ourselves as part of the global community and recognizing our shared responsibility to take joint actions to address global challenges. Nevertheless, in all those ideas, I didn't find the future. All those strategies that I offered, they're aimed as a reaction to existing problems, the global challenges, poverty, global warming, human rights, and so forth. Strategies of UNESCO in 2017, they again remind me of reactions to the existing problems, sustainable economic growth, environmental problem protection, and development of social sphere. UN from 1990, constantly measuring the standard of living, and also reaction to existing problems, life expectancy, level of education. This is another transitional conclusion. The whole world is at loss, VUCA. All the development strategies are reactive and aimed at meeting public needs. So all those strategies, they're aimed on the past or current states, but the world needs future strategies. Well, we talked about that the world desperately needs ideas for the future. And this is how we approach this life. There's new technologies come to our life all the time. Like, for example, AI, artificial intelligence. Is it good? Yes, it's wonderful. It's help to the humanity. But we read in the recent news that Italy actually abandoned that. Why? Because people start misusing this wonderful tool. Because people are not corrected. So the question arises, how to educate a person that could use any tool in their hand without any fear that the person would use that instrument to harm the world. So we see that any external limitations would not change that. The person needs to have internal structure and rules and understand how to use everything correctly. So what's the global citizenship? But I think there's a huge problem here. Humanity doesn't have an answer to the question where the world's going, what the society would look like in the future. So I think it depends on us how accurately we depict that image, that global citizenship. We need not only not to interfere with one another, but to achieve conscious ideas. So the system of education, public consciousness, that all will depict as the future. For example, education forms important ideas in a human being. But when the individual is merged into the society, all that was formed in the individual starts to melt and disappears gradually. So another idea, let's isolate that system of education along with its products. But this way, we remove an individual from the society. So we see that main line here, and including IWRI, we need to create integral system of education. When the person continues to live in society, but the new ideas that form an individual are not suppressed by that society. So I think we could achieve that goal. We have description of that society of the future with all its characteristics, where we could diminish influence of the society on the individual and the form established stable view world, conscious view world of that in that individual that will want to build a new society. So this is a kind of a small commercial. This is kind of an example. It's not an ideal, of course, but nevertheless, it's useful in the frame of the IWRI Institute. We develop model of the society of the future on the basis of laws of sociology and the works of scientists Leib Alibi Ashlag Salam, the model of the future. We search, we brainstorm, and this is part of an online webinar. We don't claim that this is just the only right ideas and unique ideas, but we invite everybody to discuss all those ideas. And we need more of those little islands of development and brainstorming.
Запросил у той же самой системы искусственного интеллекта чат GPT. Вот,
so chat GPT, I looked at the concept there.
работают над тем, чтобы определить и
There are
разработать
existing concepts in the world
общество будущего. Далее,
that
целый перечень,
reflect the concepts of the future.
понимаю, что это далеко не полный перечень. Здесь я перешел к заключительному слайду. Я слежу за временем. Чуть-чуть, я извиняюсь, уже чуть-чуть превысил. Итак, если нам удастся достаточно точно определить цели общества будущего, то эти цели станут целью для системы образования и станут смыслом для личности. Оберегать сформированные характеристики в себе, компетентности, чтобы эти характеристики не были поглощены и размыты окружающим общественным сознанием. Таким образом, мы получаем личности с проактивным мировоззрением. И по гипотезе Эмиля Дюркгейма, подобные личности, они могут сформировать группу с устойчивым мировоззрением. И эта группа станет агентом перемен и в обществе, которое при этом потеряло ориентиры, то самое ВУКА. И эта группа может превратиться в общество с опережающим общественным сознанием, так называемым обществом будущего. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, everybody, for attention.
Dear Professor Krasnov, for this insightful presentation. Let's check in with Ernest to see if we have any questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, okay. Thank you very much, Professor Krasnov, and thank you, everybody. I just had a look if we had any questions. At the moment, I couldn't see something on our spreadsheet, but I would like to ask a question, Professor Krasnov, with your permission. If I understood correctly from your presentation, okay, is we understand mostly that the world is dealing with the past and with the present, with the current situation, what we have, and we are not investing enough time and efforts towards the future, if I understood correctly. My question will be, is it the methodology of the round tables or something that brings the people closer and start actually a sort of a dialogue between different opinions, different levels, different associations, start to build something that will commonly share a common goal that will be the benefit for the whole world? Or at least we can start with a micro model, develop for a bigger model, and bring it to a global model. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Да, доктор Эрнест, большое спасибо за
Yes,
вопрос.
Dr. Ernest, thank you very much for your question.
По сути, мы и из психологии знаем,
From the sociology and psychology, we know
совпадают интересы,
that when people have concurrent interests,
является фактором объединения.
it already
И мы вокруг
serves as a basis
видим огромное
for their
количество групп
communication and connection.
интересам.
So we see groups that are combined according to their interests.
Я здесь в своем докладе
In my presentation,
основную цель, которую хотел донести,
the main ideas that I want to convey,
вот эти 22 минуты,
all those 22 minutes,
превысил,
maybe I exceeded a little bit my time, I'm sorry about it.
чтобы донести важность,
It's all
что это очень важно.
to convey the importance
В мире все больше и больше появлялось групп,
for the world
которые
to have more and more groups.
пробовать определить
Goals of who
мира,
would be to define the characteristics of the world that we want to live in.
и чем точнее эти характеристики будут
And the more precise those characteristics are defined,
теми целями, которыми мы
the more clear
объяснять.
goals we will have that we could explain to everybody.
Предлагаем формировать те или
So in the system of education,
то же
we
самое
offer people
говорим о формировании
the ideas
компетентности.
that would form the integral competence.
Важно, как характеристика.
It's important
Вопрос, а для чего
But now we have a question, why? Why do we need that system of uniting people? Why do we need integration? Why do we need integral education? So we would lead the group, the society, to the goals that need to be defined. So the unity of the society is not a goal in its own, it's only an instrument to achieve a certain goal. So the question arises, but who can offer a goal, where we're going? It's like the labs that I demonstrated in my presentation, that currently there are a lot of groups in existence that have that goal in front of them to define the future society, where we're going, and where we would like to come and lead the whole humanity to. So I think this is my question. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Krasnov. I see that Mr. Alexander Averbach, okay, is willing to ask a question. Please.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. The idea is understandable, and it was all formulated very clear and understandable. The system of education that exists today, it's aimed on the school age children and youth. So in all good conditions, it will take probably decades for the people to achieve all those ideas. But those ideas we can internalize only if we have some kind of united system of education, including adults. So let's imagine that we have that and everybody accepted it. But how do we build it on the scale of civilized society? Thank you.
Да, доктор Александр, большое.
Yes, Dr. Averbach, thank you so much for your question. Maybe I'll try to answer it this way. It'd be my pleasure to pull some kind of ready-made instruction and the concept and let everybody know, please write it down, step number 1, step number 2. And unfortunately, I don't have that instruction, but I know that we desperately need it. And I know it's also in the mainframe of our institute. We need to try and offer that instruction. What it would look like? What was it about? And I completely agree that we should not limit ourselves only by children and youth. Of course, we give them certain lines how to achieve that. But the current consciousness of the society and everything that our system of education try to build there, it all breaks down now. So this problem is very evident and looming. So how do we help to form new ideas? How do we help all those ideas to take roots and not to destroyed by the society? This is what we're talking about, the evidence of this problem. I'm not saying this is something new. Well, my task was to emphasize this problem and to show how necessary the work in that direction is. So, Dr. Alexander, I understand that I did not fully answer your question. Well, thank you, I understand. One small question, if I may. Maybe I missed that, but I think there are organizations that work on those problems currently. So in the crisis that we had last year, we saw that it was coming, but it put our civilization on the brink of total destruction. So what's our directions towards avoiding those crises? How to solve those problems? So how do we do that? How do we work with it? Thank you for the question. I would say this. We all saw how all those organizations reacted on the problems, and we all saw that they were all in chaos and not understanding how to deal with that, and all those decisions that were taken and then canceled. I cannot say how each of those organizations will work on it. This is a huge topic. I only looked at the list of organizations that in general try to work with the concepts for solving those problems and the direction of the society of the future. I'm sure that if those organizations offered some kind of good ideas, they will be translated, broadcasted through the social media, and we would see those decisions only the after fact. That we see that organization would say, look, before the crisis, we saw it would be this and this, and we forecasted everything, and it all came to life. It all happened. On basis of that, we could assume that the instrument of that organization is a working instrument, and we could use that. But the fact, and I'm not saying that I looked everywhere, but the fact that we didn't see that from those organizations, those confirmations, that testifies on its own that they didn't offer anything that would help. So this is my words, but it's a topic for a separate research that it's huge. Thank you so much for your answer.
I'm going to jump in because we do need to move on, but thank you so much for those insights, Professor. And thank you to our participants for all of the great questions. I see that there are several more questions, but we do need to move on to honor the time of our other guests. In just a few minutes, we're going to take a 5-minute break. This is a great time to stretch your legs, grab a snack, talk to your fellow participants. It's been my honor to host for this first half of the conference. For the second half, our dear friend Lucia is going to be hosting. He's also a fellow educator. So please return in 5 minutes as we have some exciting presentations and discussions coming up. We'll see you then.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a pleasure sharing these last moments with you. My name is Lucian Chia. I am a teacher, as Johnny said. I'm also in a university setting where I teach chemistry, and it's always a pleasure to hear such scientific discussions as they relate to integration. It's a great joy, of course, to be here with you all. So we will continue discussions, but in the meanwhile, I believe that our next speaker, Professor Olga Belachenko, is not here. I just need to make sure that that's the case. Does anyone have any understanding if she's available? Doesn't look like. Okay. So change in plans, then we will go to a very, very lovely opportunity. We're going to have breakout rooms, and in which case what we've learned to date during our first presentations will be put into practice. So we'll have a small group of folks in breakout rooms in which we will we'll talk about the dreams of integral education, experiences in integral education, how it can be put into practice. So we can, perhaps I will write the question down for all of us. It will be a 10-minute question session in which we will again discuss our dreams of integral education and putting them into practice.
And friends, we do not have the option for breakout rooms in this particular meeting, so we can talk together with the question at hand. Thank you.
So if anyone would like to start, that would be fabulous. Please feel free to just open your mic and then begin.
You can repeat the question one more time for us?
Sure. We would like to have an understanding or some insight into integral education in your life, or how you feel it can be put into practice based on what we've heard so far from our speakers. How do you feel about integral education thus far as something that you believe could be put into practice?
Lucian, I don't mind beginning.
Please.
I am retired now, almost 10 years, but right before I left, we had begun the roundtable possibility for discussion. And I remember it was rather new at that time because we were used to lecturing and the students taking notes. It was a fantastic beginning. But because of my work with IWRI in the last 6 or 7 years, I have seen that roundtable and the principles that go with it. And by the way, if you tune in tomorrow, there is going to be a lesson, a talk on specifically how to teach this. So do come back. But I think my dream is the most basic thing at all, to first learn to listen to another's point of view, even if it's different, and then to embrace that and put it with one's own perspective. And I think there's great hope in that most basic thing. So that's my dream, that we do roundtables for years to come. Please, somebody else.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. Please.
I would like to jump in with your permission. I had the opportunity actually to run a roundtable for professionals. I am by trade, I am a quality engineer, a quality manager, environment, health and safety, and a consultant, used to teach in several institutions. But the interesting point was when we came to a point to discuss quality in manufacturing, quality in industry, what is the best method to reach actually is a consensus on the decision-making process. Definitely, we have like in the manufacturing environment, we are experiencing the different variations in materials, variations people coming, or the training, different levels, technological development. But the most important question was, is the methodology of the round table is able to reach a higher level of consensus. And the interesting part was that there are guests that were invited, like external guests out of our operation, and we're very, very excited, for the approach for this methodology, because the reason being that the different various opinions that actually started to put together and start like a circles and introduction and what is called the ice breaking, and start the connection, conversation, and changing different experiences. It slowly brought to the point that almost 99% of the participants could actually agree on the end result. And actually the goal that was set at the beginning of the meeting, it was almost 100% met by the right approach and by the right introduction, discussion, and the right table methodology that brought all the people closer with their opinions. That will be my insight for this one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ernest. We have a few more minutes if anyone also would care to continue before our next presentation. We'd love it.
I'm actually presenting. Part of my presentation is on discussion circles. I call them connection circles. So I won't give that away today, but I'd like to share a personal experience from the classroom with 11th and 12th graders at Charles H. Bowen Career and Technical Center. At the beginning of the school year, there wasn't a single student in that class that liked each other. Not only that, they had a very intense animosity for one another. And it was the most challenging class that I've ever worked with. They were studying architectural drafting. And I used the connection circles in conjunction with other activities I'll share tomorrow. And over time, even though they didn't always abide by the rules, most of the time they didn't at the beginning of the school year, but over time, they actually started speaking to one another, just not in the connection circles, but in class in general. And I would say by halfway through the school year, they became best friends. After they graduated, they came back to school to visit me. They were still inseparable. That was a defining moment for me, that the connection circles can solve any problem with any group of people anywhere. It's just a little of my personal experience with the connection circles. Thank you for opening up the discussion.
Thank you, Mary. Beautiful story.
Hearing Mary's success inspired me to do connection for the sake of connection activities and introduce integral education as I teach documentary filmmaking to students of all ages. And I've brought it into the corporate setting. I see the workshop idea integral to the work with corporations and having them connect and participate in the workshops and get away from me coming in and doing my own lectures and whatnot, but right away get the workshops going. And it's been very successful. I look forward to learning more from this conference. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Nan. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? We have time maybe for one more.
I'd like to say something.
Please.
In North America, inclusive education has been a goal for over 30 years, and unsuccessfully, as much as we have tried, millions of students have been dropping out of school, and this educational system has been yearning for something much more integral so that all students of all cultures, of all intellect, could be taught in a multi-modal way. There is so much information that is relevant for today, and the only way to acquire this knowledge is in an integral system of education. And in addition to that, the way that we evaluate our students is not in any way comparable to how they're being taught. And I believe that this direction of integral education is absolutely the only way we can bring our societies to some sort of unification where everyone feels confident and brings up the educational levels of all peoples. Thank you.
Beautiful, Karen. I think I could probably give a seminar on what you talked about, because in college, it's a grave issue, very problematic. But I hope everyone was able to feel a sense of purpose in our discussion. It was really nice. I thank you for it. So Professor Belichenko gave us this beautiful opportunity. I'm grateful for it. So we continue. So we have Professor Lael Tanner, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, is here as a member of the IWRI Education Department. She was born in Izmir, graduated from the American Collegiate Institute in 1984, and from the dental faculty of Gazi University 5 years later. She received a doctorate in orthodontics in 1994 and became a professor in 2008. Works as a full-time professor at the Department of Orthodontics, dental faculty of Gazi, has been head of the department from 2019 to 21, also in charge of the Department of Orthodontics, dental faculty at Cyprus University of Health and Social Sciences as head, gives lessons on body language to Gazi University students and body language and patient communication in dentistry to dental students, besides the undergraduate, postgraduate courses she also teaches, working as a member of many committees at the dental faculty at Gazi, executive board, social activities committee as head, and faculty fund committee. She has many publications and presentations and has given a number of lectures to dental students and assistants of ortho at dental faculty, Aristotle University in Greece, in 2007 as part of the Erasmus Exchange Program. She speaks advanced English as well as French, gives conferences on holistic life and awareness, stress management, and success to a number of organizations. She's working on holistic therapies for groups and personally concerning complementary medicine. Professor Dr. R. Lael Tanner has invented what is known as Natural Hermetic Healing System, NHHS. By herself, it is a system of healing DNA and RNA and awareness, which she applies to a number of sessions. The title of her presentation is From Oneself to Integrity. Professor Tanner, thank you.
Thank you for this introduction. Dear colleagues, dear participants, let me share my presentation first. Okay. Now I'm going to speak about how we can relate this oneself to integrity and how we can develop this relevance to integral education. I'm sure every one of us, sometime in our lives, have some questions in mind which arise or prompt just in 1 second or so. And we start to become aware of things that a little bit disturb us, a little bit arise question in us, and we start feeling a little bit anxious. And these questions then lead us to search for things. And this is how science actually began one day. We as human beings have our desires, our thoughts, our feelings, which can be formed or changed according to how we live, what we live, who we encounter with, how we get educated, and our circumstances and our environment, of course. So we can say that all our desires, lifestyle, our experiences are a result of these inner forces and outer forces, which we are going to talk about a little bit. Now, what these lead us, or these teach us, or actually we believe they teach us, is that they give us a guidance. And we believe this guidance just lets us flow with the life that we live in. But then comes a moment and we see we are not floating. We are just stuck. So we begin to search for the reasons. Why are we feeling that we are stuck somehow, somewhere? Let's speak about what we feel and what the society feels and what all humanity feels. Can we distinguish between these? Yes, we can. We need to understand the human being's features, but can we relate these to the society? Sometimes we can, and sometimes we cannot. How can we define ourselves or try to understand more about ourselves? We just need to observe each human being and what happens around us. And we just need to perceive all the data that is given to us in our lifetime. Actually, we get this data from our families at the very beginning, and then from schools, from the education that we get, from our teachers. We really get inspired from our teachers. We all know this. So we get into integration with maybe friends, maybe just neighbors. And then we come to know more and more by social media. We go through the internet and we get many, many information, sometimes false, sometimes true. We try to communicate. And once we try to communicate, we come to a point and see that we cannot. Or we think we can, but when chaos begins, or there's some kind of a debate and we never come to a solution, then we understand and questions rise again. And we see that the person, not me, the person that I'm trying to talk to is making judgments, but I'm not. And this is my prejudice, of course. Within the notice of all these details, we try to raise our children and we try to have them the best education they can. And we try having our children and ourselves to realize what is happening all around us. Why do we have this chaos in the world that we are living in? So we begin to just look a little bit differently, trying to understand more. This makes the impressions, this forms the impressions of our lives, and which lead to our characteristics. Now, perception and empathy play a very, very important role in this concept because we perceive these, the data that I'm talking about. We perceive what is going on around us, what has been given to us, but we perceive it according to our own feelings, according to the situation we are in, according to our interference with others, experiences. What about the others? The others that we are trying to deal with or communicate with, they also perceive according to their own impressions. And therefore, sometimes we have conflicts in between us. In order to overcome this conflict or diversity, we have to have empathy. Empathy to try to understand the features of others. And there are many factors within a lifetime that can affect these features. The way we are brought up, even the economical conditions of the society that we just were brought up. Of course, all of these give us an inspiration, and we try to act, judge, or live according to these. So can we say that there is a relationship between us and the world? Or is there a relationship? And if there is, what is it? We are seeing that we are what we are ready to see, what we are meant to see. We eliminate and ignore anything that is not part of our biases. So we speak about a reality, and this reality that we speak of is something that we see, we perceive, but does the one that is just in front of me, or you, do you perceive the same thing? Do you see the same reality? Everything is part of a single system called nature. Now, we are almost aware of a single system. It has been talked about years and years now that there is a system that we live in, and we have to get adapted to that system. They sometimes call it nature, sometimes call it the upper world, sometimes call the upper soul. There are different topics that deal with this. But philosophers say that since everything is interconnected, reality cannot exist except from a single source. So this gives us the clue that there is some kind of an interconnection with the environment that we are living in, the world, and what is called reality. Nature has its own laws, and these laws do not change. Science has just proven, meaning there is evidence-based data now, we all know, as the results of the research is done, there is a reaction to every action. And similarly, every result has a reason. So what we see or what we observe is the result, but it has the reason. Do we really understand the reason? That's the harder part. Because these reactions and results, we can just deal with, we can just observe, we can just live with. But why we leave these as they are, they come from the upper and more detailed nature, the laws. Nowadays, we feel this chaos. We feel a more and more need of understanding, trying to understand the results, searching more for the reasons, because we are being pressed, pushed internally and externally in this world, in this chaotic world. We have flood, war, earthquakes at the same time. Many are victims, and nature forces us to acquire a new form of connection between us. This is the reason. Do we get to understand this? Maybe a little bit, but not much. So nature wants, with its laws, wants to show or declare some things that human beings do not get. Which means We may be victims as human beings in the end, yes, but were we the ones who caused or who just started this chaos? So maybe we should have another kind of thinking, another form of thinking. Are we just doing good to the nature, or are we just doing harm to the nature so that there is some kind of a pressure which leads to this chaos and gives us all this sorrow and suffering? So we need to just start question ourselves and the lifestyles, our lifestyles. And can we say that these lifestyles that we live in, we get our experiences from, they come from our education? We are somehow educated and we have our beliefs. But always remember that we have been educated from teachers who were taught and who perceived the same system. But there is a really global and grand system, and it is explained by the grand unified theory of everything. And scientists say that we are, and all parts of reality are one whole. Were we taught this before? No. We were taught to be successful as individuals. We were taught to be the best of everything. But did we succeed in the whole world when we think about every country or every geographic place in the world? No. The answer is no. So then there's a mistake. And it says it's a mistake to separate the parts of the whole, to divide what should not be divided into parts. Harmony and integrity constitute reality. Then we can say that, start to think that there is some kind of a separation done by human beings, and this leads to the disharmonization of this integral system. Human being is part of a whole called the universe. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings apart from a state of inactivity, a kind of optical illusion of consciousness, says Einstein. Now, then, after hearing this or seeing this optical illusion, should we maybe start to have a new concept of thinking? Maybe a new concept of action. The diversity we feel is just an image. It is not real. We have been talking about reality and its relation with nature, and then comes this illusion, which is not real. So what are we going to do? What are we going to believe in? Now here is the answer: integral education. Integral education will advance a person so much that it will not be difficult to learn any branch of science. What we learned all from nature. Physics, biology, chemistry, mathematics, science, all the researches, all the data within the researches have been drawn from nature, actually, this global system. But did we use the data that we got, the evidence-based data actually, that we got received from nature, did we use it for integral behavior, for integral education? No. Then there should be a change. And by integral education, the world as a whole and the general global system will be explained. And its importance is that integral global approach accurately explains this world to the human being. So we need to question our education system and try to connect with this integrity and change all our view, maybe. Nature gives its elements to its environment rather than taking them from it. What do we have? In a scientific way, when we examine our body, we see that we have cells, many cells, which form the organs, and organs make the body work and work correctly. So they make this contribution, and they just serve the body. The cells are programmed so to serve the body. We have atoms, which form the molecules, and these atoms just behave in the way that they should. They were programmed, and they have an altruistic nature. They have to change if they had the self-centered nature into an altruistic nature, because they were programmed to serve as molecules and to serve to nature. But we as human beings, we were not programmed in this way. We have been made, we have our DNA, our codes, and there are many, many different roles which integrate and form different features, many kinds of characteristics of human beings. And there is the free will, we think that there is the free will, which has been in us, and we can do everything in the world. We can succeed, we can destroy, we can construct. But is there this free will? If we think in the view of the self-centered system, then there is this free will to destroy, to construct, to do whatever we want and whenever we want. But when we look at this integral system or nature, we see that an atom or a cell does not behave in the way that it wants. It is not self-centered. It is just programmed to serve and to work in an integral system. And this is the altruistic means. We human beings have our ego, which is just in a diverse or opposite way to this, to nature, because nature gives, develops, produces. Our ego destroys, takes, and does not like to give, does not like to share, does not like to love. So there is kind of a mixing, chaos, and our ego is unique, as well as the uniqueness of the nature, but on opposite sides. Integral perception is natural, so then we should question our own perception. And it is the nature of reality that is increasingly emerging today, because we have started to question more and more what we can do. There should be some kind of a difference in or a change in our perception and the way we behave as human beings, the way we treat the world, the way we treat other human beings. So we discovered the desire to give and receive. We as human beings have the desire to receive. Nature has the desire to give, to do good. And there is a difference between the creation and the human beings in the way that we live, in the way that we create this chaos. But if we want to be similar to this creation, if we want to be educated, if we want to be educated in this manner, then can we succeed in just being the opposite way than we are? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We surely can. We have the capacity. We just have to do some things. How can we start? By pacifying myself to the nature and to the universe, to the creation, and trying to work, to think, to feel for the benefit of the creation, of the universe, of all human beings. Then we can reach this ecosystem in homeostasis. Well, we should be aware homeostasis is the natural feature of human beings, human body actually, and the ecosystem is the natural feature of nature. But what has been done in years, human beings just we have altered this, and all new spiritual healing methods have emerged, and we are trying just again to reach homeostasis. So we just made everything into a chaos, changed homeostasis, and now we are trying to reach it back. And the only way to keep this calm, to keep this lovely system that was given to us in the very beginning, is to pacify ourselves, to draw ourselves from the self-centered tendencies, and to be altruistic. But this is very hard, actually. Man can never have what he wants, because the moment he has it, he wants twice as much. And when we get what we want, the pleasure is cancelled. So what? What are we going to do? We have a new desire then. Since we are egoistic, we are competitive. On the contrary, nature is in balance and is holistic. So how come that we can be one day nature-like? We can learn this. We can do this by education. By the integral view, and this is the wisdom of life that we should teach our children. And this is the way that we should educate our children, change the relationships with the environment, and start teaching in this way. And nowadays, this century is the time has come. We have to be in balance with this nature, and we have to act like nature, be in harmony with nature, and treat others in this way, so that we can again reach the interconnection that was the global connection and the interconnection that was present at the very, very beginning. If we want to be happy, we must make others happy, just as this higher power does. And nature, the upper power, we can call it, we are under the control of this power. So if we act in similarity to nature, if we try to understand, learn, and then if we teach in this way, then we can get integrity into integral views, approaches. And we are not creating anything new. Our job is only to illuminate what is hidden within us. It is already present there. We just have to come and see, go and see, and grab. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so very much. That was so beautiful. Thank you, Professor Tanner. So we have some time for questions. I'll turn it over to Ernest. Are there any questions from the participants or from social media?
I do not see at the moment, but I would like really to appreciate Professor Tanner for this tremendous, really very, very exciting presentation. I don't know if you have the time, but I would like a very quick question. You mentioned nature, you mentioned the results, you mentioned the actual reaction. Is it a possibility to reach a level of equivalence of form? Is it an opportunity to reach a level of equivalence for form? I remember years ago, I read a book, it's called From Chaos to Harmony. You mentioned also the word chaos. And it was mentioned like a sort of a level of development from still vegetative, animative up to human level. Do you see at this situation, in the global situation today, what can be done in order to reach harmony? Thank you so much.
Thank you for this question. We just need to care for each other. We just need to think about not ourselves, but others, what we can do for this world, for not only for our children, but for others' children. How can we raise them up? How can we teach them the natural way actually to love and to care and be together, connect together, do together, be successful together, run together, and act together. Although we have diversities, although we may have different characteristics, we should have one aim: to create a better world, to increase, yes, our quality of life, have the ascent in the quality of life, but have it for everyone. Because if I feel better, that would do no good to any of you. But if we feel better or we live better, that will do good to all the world. So there is always hope, and these are facts. It is not only hope, but these are facts. We just have to change our aspects. We just have to change the way we educate our children. We just have to change the way we behave. And we should do it immediately, I suppose.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Beautiful. Well stated. Are there any other burning questions? If not, I want to take this moment to apologize to our guests. We seem to have an issue with Zoom bombing, and we're trying to deal with it. I know Mariam is going to be next, and I'm hopeful that we can deal with it before it occurs again. If there are any suggestions, because really we have to close off this room to anyone else, because it appears to be a consistent phenomenon. I apologize again. Mariam, a dear friend, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say your name correctly, but I'll try. Mariam Abuguseya Haidt. She is a doctor, PhD, in curriculum and instruction from the University of Wyoming. Very cool place. Her master's in teaching curriculum is from Rochester, a place where I did my postdoc, by the way. Very cool. I think the one in New York, I'm hoping. And her bachelor's degree is in psychology and German from the same place. She is currently an assistant professor in education and human development department at SUNY Brockport, where she is the program director for TESOL, TESOL graduate programs, and teaches courses in such fields and bilingual education. She has taught graduate courses in this area, world language education methods, and second language acquisition since 2013, when she began her career as academic at Rochester. Mariam is also a former middle school German teacher and former ESL teacher with various K through 16 ESL teaching experiences. She strongly believes in the connecting power of languages, and her research is focused on fostering imagined communities and building connections with others across many differences and distances, very much in keeping with what we're learning here, especially as professed by Professor Tanner. Her interest in fostering connection brought her to us, where she is so excited and a wonderful person for this special kind of area of integral education, and she will continue to do this work. The title of her presentation is Connection and Community Through Imagination. Imagine communities as a springboard for integral education. I'm so delighted to have my friend join us. Give her a warm welcome. Thank you, Professor Mariam.
Thank you so much for the welcome and for your kind words. I truly appreciate it. I'm going to share my slides now. I appreciate the fact that you're here. I appreciate the opportunity to share, and I'm so enjoying this conference. So thank you. All right. So as was introduced, the topic is connection and community through imagination. Imagine communities as a springboard for integral education. As you saw from what Lucian said, my background is in language education, and this problem that I was always seeking a solution to, and which led me to doctoral study, was a problem I noticed as a world language teacher when I was a German teacher. Oftentimes the language programs would be on the chopping block, meaning they would try to cut language programs, especially German tended to be the one because it wasn't quite as popular as Spanish and French. So I was always seeking a problem to the fact that only the most motivated language learners decided to stay in language programs. And also, in general, there's a decline in emotional and behavioral school engagement. It's well documented. So though I was brought to this work through trying to engage language learners, it really applies to all learning. So, all right. So the quote I'm going to give you here is about general connection. So what appears to be a lack of interest in learning may therefore not reflect a resistance to learning or an inability to learn. On the contrary, it may reflect a genuine thirst for learning of a kind that engages one's identity on a meaningful trajectory and affords some ownership of meaning. So basically the idea is we need to seek internal motivations for learning and engage students at the internal level. So my research on imagined communities has a conceptual framework, which includes Gardner's socio-educational model of language acquisition, as well as Anderson, Wenger, and Norton's imagined communities. And I'll talk about these in the next couple of slides. So I'm going to read you this quote, but please keep in mind that I believe this quote goes beyond language learning. I believe it's important for all people. The world would be a better place if we cared about others and sought to understand them. So though this will talk about language education, I believe it's very, very inclusive of all people. So Gardner says, integrativeness reflects a genuine interest in learning the second language in order to come closer to the other language community. At one level, this implies an openness to and respect for other cultural groups and ways of life. In the extreme, this might involve complete identification with the community and possibly even withdrawal from one's original group. But more commonly, it might well involve integration within both communities. Integrativeness involves emotional identification with another cultural group. So it's really all about connection, and this goes beyond language education. Imagine communities, it started with Anderson. He was looking at how people feel a part of a nation, even though they don't get to meet everyone in their nation. How do they feel like they're a part of this larger community called a nation? So I'm in the United States. How do I feel like I'm part of an American community? It's a big question. And then Wenger took it up in his idea of communities of practice. And Norton furthered that in her own work with imagined communities. She was looking at English language learners in an English speaking setting. So in Canada, what was the experience of English language learners that were surrounded by other English speakers while they were learning to speak the language? So the quote from her is, imagined communities refers to groups of people not immediately tangible and accessible with whom we connect through the power of imagination. Ever since I read that, I've been really, really behind this idea of imagined communities. I think it's wonderful. And I think it's helpful beyond language education, just as the quote from Gardner is. So briefly, I'll just share that imagination is not just kind of play you do in your mind. Imagination can have tangible effects beyond the mind. So there's research that shows, among other research, I'm just going to give you 3 pieces of research. There's research that shows that there's an effect on motor skill development and performance. It can influence consumer opinion and behavior. and it can increase feelings of happiness, love, and connection in relationships. So imagination is more than just how children play. It has real effects for us in real life. So my research, I told you it was based on me being a language educator and trying to engage my students. My research seeks to create and foster imagined communities for people. This hadn't been done before, so I developed a curriculum to foster imagined communities. But also, I do believe it is very applicable beyond language study. So my questions were, what happens when imagined communities are fostered in the language classroom? What do students experience in how do students experience an imagined communities-based curriculum in terms of their experiences and definitions of connection, their experiences of community memberships, and the role of motivation in their experiences? So the research I did, it was a qualitative research project, and I also used qualitative analysis. It was collaborative action research. I worked with a German teacher, and she allowed me to spend a whole year in her 8th grade German classrooms. She had 2 classes of students. There was a total of 41 students. It was their 2nd year of German study, so they already had some foundation in German. I was there for the entire year, and together we co-designed an Imagined Communities curriculum. Throughout the project, I did 3 open-ended surveys, one at the beginning, one at the middle, and one at the end for all the students. I also interviewed everyone at the end of the year, and I was there most days observing and taking field notes. And then for my analysis, I used grounded theory analysis. So how to implement imagined communities in the classroom. This is what we did. We used authentic web quests. A web quest is just where you search the internet to answer questions based on a theme. We also did a lot of task-based learning. We focused on real-world authentic tasks. For instance, you need furniture, go choose some furniture from a furniture website. That's an example. And then we used realia. That is basically real world items such as menus and grocery store advertisements. We used multimedia in German made by the people themselves. So it wasn't from like a textbook company. It was, it was real world multimedia. And the assessments were authentic. So for instance, students might have seen an advertisement for a grocery store and had to answer multiple choice questions about the ad. So an example of the web quest, this was really fun, and you'll see that some of the quotes later are referring to this web quest. The idea of the web quest is that students were going to be moving to Europe with their families. Obviously, this is an imagined scenario. So we told them that they were moving to Europe, to one of the German-speaking countries with their family. And so they needed to find a place to live for their family. So they navigated authentic websites and gathered information about places to live. They picked a city, and they actually used that city for the entire year. So they got to know it very well. Then after finding a place to live from these authentic websites, real estate websites, they constructed an argument and used German to present information on the chosen city and housing. So they were presenting it to the class, but the class acted as their family. So it's like they were presenting to their family where they wanted to move. And like I said, they continued to focus on their city throughout the year. So what were the findings? The findings came a lot. Even though I did a lot of observation and took notes and analyzed that, the findings spoke loudest in the interviews. So it was found that the Imagined Communities curriculum led to more in-depth, richer study in culture and or language. Students perceived connection and community memberships that they were influenced by various factors. So some things that influenced their connection and community membership were their level of confidence in the language, perceived similarities or differences to the culture of the people, and opportunities for connection, actual connection, or their proximity to actual German speakers. Not all students formed Imagine community memberships with target group, and the target group was the German speakers. In some cases, there was a lot of complex reasons behind this, but one of the main things is that this imagination needs to be plausible, and it also should start earlier because they had already experienced 1 year of German study, and they were starting to kind of have sort of fixed understandings of how language learning takes place, like what the curriculum is like. Most students noted a motivation increase. So 66% of students said that they were more motivated to continue their language study, and 29% saw no change, and only 5% saw a decrease. I think this is actually rather good. And the reason I chose 8th grade to study is because 8th graders in the district we were working in, they can drop the language after their 2nd year of study. So I wanted to try to get them motivated and interested before they had to make this decision whether or not to continue with language study. Overall, the findings were that there were very positive experiences and they were better than last year. So back to the finding of going more in depth in culture, language, or both, we have this quote from Aria. These are all pseudonyms, by the way. We went more in depth than last year. Like when we did the traveling, like I traveled there. We were using that in the project, and we were using like how to get to places and stuff. So then we learned it, I guess. So here you can see she was imagining that she traveled there. I gave you that example of the web quest, and there were many other web quests like it, especially once they moved to the country, to the city. They had other web quests where they had to find furniture, they went to concerts and other fun things, and they had to find these things on the internet and present about them. So you can clearly see that she imagined she had traveled there. Another quote about this connection and community. I guess we can learn their language better because we are connected with them in a way. Since you connected with them, you feel more part of their culture. And then it almost probably wants you to become a German language speaker. So here James was talking about feeling more connected, and he was talking about it as if it was real for him. So as you see, imagination can be very real. And by the way, I want to say, we didn't really get to interact much with German speakers. This was all a result of the curriculum. So the next one, another really great example, and it refers back to the web quest. It says, I bought the mansion from 1906, but it was interesting. I could turn it into a bed and breakfast, and it had like all the garages that I could rent. He had chosen a house with like 6 or more garages, and he said, I bought the mansion. So he was really imagining it. Next, he said, all the different projects we've done this year have definitely set my connectivity to them, which is German speakers, very high. So like I said, he's really showing that he did imagine and feel that he had done these things, and it made him feel more connected. He said it was very high connection. So the students' experiences of motivation and connection, I'll just give you some numbers here. Most students noted an increase in motivation from the year before. Like I said, it had to do with culture and connection. Those were the biggest motivators. 66% saw an increase, about 29% had no change, and 5% saw a decrease. Again, this was because of what they had experienced the year before. They couldn't kind of undo what they had learned the year before, though they had a great teacher. Most students noted greater connection and ability to relate with German speakers. So here in the interviews, I found that 88% saw an increase in connection or ability to relate to German speakers, and the remaining 12% saw no change. So I think that's a big win, 88% increase, and the rest kind of stayed the same. Another finding was that culture as a motivator. So students noted motivation to learn about culture, which accounted for many students' increase in motivation as a result of the curriculum change for that year that I was there. So I'd like to say that understanding another's culture is part of connection and appreciation for others. So this doesn't just have to do with language education. Another finding along the same lines is, I'll give you a quote. It's for the culture as a motivator finding from Nicole. Just like connecting, that's like the culture thing. Just like learning that culture improved basically everything. Just like the fact that we got to learn like their way of life down there and everything, it just like overall brings everything higher, like motivation, connection, community, everything. It was like a key part of this year. I think that helped everyone too. By the way, I think you're noticing the word like throughout these sentences. I didn't want to edit the students' quotes to make them more proper. These are 8th graders, and I enjoyed listening to them the way they spoke. So I apologize for the likes thrown in there, but I wanted to keep their words true to what they told me when I recorded them. Okay, so now looking at the teacher, here was her experience. She said this: I think I have always used a lot of authentic realia. Remember, realia is like real world items, but it still was more like the observer, like we were studying the German culture, where now they had to do this year. Now what they had to do this year was different. They were actually making choices as if they were in the country. They were making a more personalized choice in different situations. So I think that role play was much richer because of that. That was a big twist off or improvement of what had been existing in my classes, I think. And she was a wonderful teacher, is a wonderful teacher. So this was just like an improvement on what she was already doing very well. Next, we're going to talk about imagined communities. Like I said, other research had only been looking at imagined communities that already existed for people, but in my research, I had actually fostered imagined communities. Now I'm going to show how it connects with integral education by talking about integral education, the theory and the practice. So based on what I've learned about integral education, I would define it as follows. Integral education is an educational philosophy and approach that emphasizes holistic learning and taps into the importance of positive connections between people and their world for a better future. So here are some ways to implement integral education, because it's important to move beyond just like the idea of integral education to actually enacting it. The ideas here are circles, promoting inquiry, using nature as an inspiration, just like Dr. Tanner was talking about, guiding holistic learning, and play. So about circles, we're going to be covering that more tomorrow. Mary Pennick was talking about how she's going to talk about circles tomorrow. So I'll just go over this briefly for you so that we can leave some for Mary tomorrow. So some ideas of the circles, which actually should pertain to the entire classroom. The classroom should be like a circle. So what I'm going to say is the way you should view the entire classroom, not just sitting around in circles. This idea of circles is also used in restorative practices, but integral education version is just slightly different with, I guess, a different goal, perhaps. So everyone is equal, though we're all different, and the differences are what make us who we are. Everyone speaks one at a time, adding their own contribution, never discounting others' contributions, only adding and therefore creating a bigger picture together. Everyone listens actively and carefully, reaching mutual understanding of others' contributions, though they may be different from one's own. Everyone shows respect by refraining from criticizing or judging others and from arguing with others. Though we might not agree with everyone in the circle or in the classroom, it is important to rise above that feeling in order to move toward connection and harmony. Everyone connects with the circle and its members, forming a safe, supportive, caring learning community. And the instructor is part of the circle and should be part of that connection as well. So implementing imagined communities and integral education. So here I'm kind of trying to fuse the two together. Foster students' imagined community memberships, starting with connection and membership in the classroom. Keep integral education at the forefront. Next, get to know students and their motivations and investments. Build from students' personal differences to create a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. Work with students' imagination through plausible scenarios and the use of authentic resources and play. Help students to feel like active participants, both through imagination and through participation. Build actual connections around the world using technology whenever possible. But imagined connections are also influential, as you saw with my own research. All right, so next, these points all have common threads for imagined communities and also for integral education. So keep integral education at the forefront to guide the pedagogy. Guide holistic learning. Get inspiration from nature. Foster students' curiosity. Build the importance of positive connections. Play and imagine, and help students look to a better future for our world. All right, so we have time for questions, ideas, whatever you want to do. But first I'll show you my references, and if you'd like to see them later, I can send them to the conference organizing committee. I want to thank you for your time and for being with me, and I want you to enjoy the other presentations for the rest of today and tomorrow. They're going to be wonderful.
Wow, thank you. Awesome. That was really nice. Thank you, Dr. Mariam.
Thank you.
So we have time for questions from this very, very, very provocative discussion from Mariam. So Ernest, I give the floor to you.
Yes, I just had a look on our spreadsheet, and I believe that after this tremendous presentations that we just had the opportunity to experience with the different age groups and see like a different language, concentrating actually on the German experience, the different language that's not mostly common, but I would actually suggest it gives the time and the opportunity to everybody who is connected at the moment on the screens. And I believe that will be a lot of questions to Mariam. Thank you so much. It was a great presentation.
Okay. So in terms, Mariam, just very quickly, with the experiences that you've had in the community for integral education, are you currently, like, if you were to tell us your vision for the future, what you would like to do to sort of coalesce all that you've talked about, is there some initiative or program that you're thinking about or you'd like to see?
Thank you for the question. So I'm part of the IWRI education department, and we have a lovely team. We're trying to plan experiences for children and teens. I will give you a little bit about something that we did implement. I don't know exactly how long ago. Maybe it feels like ages ago, but I think it was only a little over a year ago. We had a teen camp, and it was through Zoom, and we had teenagers from around the world participating and connecting, and they were learning a lot of these things I was talking about with integral education. And the whole thing, it was a circle. And by the end of the 3 months together, these teens were very close. And a student that was, pretty shy, he came out of his shell, and he He was really a full-fledged member of the community, participating just as much as the students that had already been speaking up quite a lot. So my dream is that integral education would happen for everyone in every educational system from the time someone is a baby. I wrote an article about integral education for early childhood. So that's like B through 6 or B through 8, birth through 8. I believe it's important to start early with these ideas so that children can be raised in an integral way. And I know IWRI also has things for parents and families about that.
Beautiful. Any other questions for Mariam?
I just would like to say thank you so much for this inspiring presentations. And the last one, just my heart filled with joy. And I got so much desire and burning to start this imagined community platform, and then to add all these ideas of integral education for adults. And I just, oh my God, I really need more information, need more, more kind of substantial material to talk about how this world is connected and everything depends on everything. And I am just so inspired. Thank you so much, really, everyone. And thank you so much, all the presenters. That's it.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you to all the presenters. I'll just say, if you want to implement Imagined Communities, one of my findings, I found it after, because I did grounded theory research. So I didn't know everything before I started. I wanted to discover things in a very natural way and be open to what I found. I found that because my students in the study were kind of peri-adolescents, so they were like 12 and 13, because of that age, they hadn't all been through puberty. There were findings that I read later that said that after puberty is when you can truly get this imagination even more solidified, like the students would be able to talk about it more at older ages. So you mentioned adults, and I think adults should really be able to do that as long as they're willing to play and be in touch with their inner child and keep an open mind. But I do believe it should still be used with children, but it just might take more time and effort.
Thank you. And very quickly, before, just for business, I wanted to make sure that Professor Eliev, have you been able to switch Elisa's translation to English? Everything is good there? Okay, awesome, because we can do that now. Okay. Yes, then I think we're on schedule. The only issue here is our next speaker, Dr. Bakai, Olga. I don't believe she's here. Just need to confirm. She's not here. So in the background, we've been working like mad people to try and fill in the void. And one of the things that we're going to do, and this is just a last minute event, I'm going to give a presentation. I will give a presentation. I've checked with the team. This will be an interesting effort on my part. I will, if I could get the screen, if I could share, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if you can see this. Do you see this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Can you? Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. I'm not going to introduce myself. I am a teacher, and I'm very proud of being a teacher. One of the things that this has allowed me to do is tackle a number of issues. We've had a lot of people recently who have not been able to reach this integrated education that we've been talking about. At my school, North Carolina State, this semester, we've had many people who have unfortunately decided to end their lives because they have not had the privilege to learn what we're learning here. And I decided as a result to become a mental health first aid responder. So in addition to the zillion things that we do as teachers, I decided I was going to try to combat this issue of how people take care of themselves. And so in this talk, which is sort of, as Kathy pointed out to me in the chat, something that I've been sort of very interested in relationship to developing a program through IWRI on mental health and getting more resources towards people taking care of themselves. I'm going to give a little bit of what I learned. I've learned that the taking care of yourself is not simple. The integration of it is really based on these factors right here, these 8 factors: intellectual, emotional, environmental, occupational, community, physical, financial, and spiritual. All of them are very, very, very important. And I'm going to just give you my sense of them in relationship to the individual. Intellectual. We are what we think. Many of us forget, and I did as a child myself. I thought that the factors that were coming at me from the society really defined me. And so it caused me to think in a very certain way. My thoughts are real, right? If you look at the ancient philosophers, they talk about how it is actually the thought that then translates to the word, that translates then to the action and to the reality that we're in. So what I learned as a mental health responder is that we can be overwhelmed. We can come to the point where we really believe that we are not that good, or that we are not really meriting human beings. Whatever we get, we don't deserve it. And so a lot of us can become desperate. And this is where a lot of things have to change in order for us to realize, to be integrated in self-care. And so in regard to the thoughts that we use to define us, and we really want to use good thoughts, but a lot of times we then feel the need to reach out, right? Emotional, right? How to make a connection in a sort of a heart sense. A lot of times people that we interact with don't have high emotional quotients, right? EQs, or they don't really know how to sympathize. So it's up to us, as people through this education, right? Through mental health education or the education at IWRI, to connect to people in a way that allows your EQ to really overcome the situation. Because a lot of times human beings react in ways that may not come across well. And then if we choose to react in the same way, nothing can come of it. It's very, very, very difficult. And so in essence, this is a very important component. And this is probably my favorite book. It's called The Little Prince. If you haven't read it, it's a beautiful little book. The environment. This is something that I work in as a teacher. I teach chemistry. And so I recognize the importance of the environment and self-care. I am a green chemist by my field. That means I care about what the world offers us in terms of its science and how we use that science that we've talked about in this beautiful session. We have to take care of it. My dear friend Joseph Royce, who's a forester, showed me so many times how beautiful it is to walk in the Hoffman Forest, which is here in North Carolina, a forest 80,000 acres roughly. And just to be in there, it's such a deep connection. And I don't know how we forsake that, but we shouldn't. In terms of self-care, this is something we need to do, because I learned that the connection to nature really helps very much heal. Community. We are one, right? I mean, you've heard that all over the place. You can't turn around without having some philosopher tell us that. But in reality, if you can get through the emotional, the intellectual, the environment, it comes down to this greater part. This is the next layer, understanding that we are part of a greater system, right? And if we don't acknowledge it, being alone it leads you to thoughts of depression and maybe things that you shouldn't even think about or do. So it's very important to consider community and mental health. And then, within that, of course, what do you do? I don't think any of us should ever think about, like I did when I was a child, let's get a job that makes us millions and millions of dollars, because I know that that doesn't support mental health at all. All it does, all occupational does in this greater integration of connection is allow you to do something constructive, productive. We all want to feel like we're doing something creative. And the only way it should define you is it gives you an opportunity to work. And work is very important, right? Because without work, we don't feel like we're contributing to community, right? To society, to the last factor that I talked about. And then ultimately, in terms of all of this, this is a thing that we don't think about too often, but we need to, from the beginning, intellectual, thinking about your thoughts. Your thoughts can hurt you, certainly, right? I mean, you can get to a point of stress where your body is dying. And we don't want that because, in community, each of us has to work together. We're, a cog in this great system. And so take care of yourself. Always treat yourself right, eat right, and exercise, etc. Drink water. And then, of course, one of the basis things, money, like I just said, in job, you don't do it for the money, but the money's going to be there. And obviously, how much it's going to be there, a lot of people in the world are ruled by it. I mean, there's been famous people that have basically made it clear that money can be your God. And you don't want that. We know that will ultimately lead to a complete breakdown, not only of yourself, but of society, as we're seeing. And then finally, I just decided I just made this up. We are more than we imagine, right? So we're spiritual. This is probably one of the least considered in all of the factors, but it's the most important, which is an interesting irony, of course, the inversion. Spirit is really about things that we can't even understand or talk about really in society, but it's about touching something more than, beyond the imagination. And I think the only other thing is I wanted to just share very quickly just this little chart. So this little chart here, this is the integration. So you see all the factors, intellectual, I don't know, can you see this? No, you can't see this, sorry. Okay, let me shoot, I've got to resume share. No, that's not that one. Back to new share. That's what I want. Okay, this one. Okay, now you can see that. Okay, so yeah, so this is what I just shared, the intellectual, emotional, environmental, physical, occupational, community, financial, and then finally spiritual. And that's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Lucian. Friends, what an honor, what a treat to have him deliver such a fantastic talk on short notice. By the way, as part of his credentials, yes, he is a professor, distinguished professor of green chemistry, Quilly University of Technology. And he's currently serving as a professor in the Department of Forest Biomaterials, Wood and Paper Science, and Chemistry, and as a faculty in the programs of Fiber and Polymer Science and Environmental Sciences at North Carolina State University. His laboratory, the Laboratory of Soft Materials and Green Chemistry, probes fundamental materials science topics focused on the green chemistry of renewable polymers. He received his PhD in organic chemistry from the University of Florida for modeling photo-induced charge separation states of novel phenium-based organic metallic ensemble as the first order of approximation of photosynthesis. So we thank you, Lucian, for stepping in. And friends, do we have any questions for Lucian right now? We'll hand it over to Ernest, see if we have any questions. Otherwise, we can send them to him later. He'll be eager to answer.
Yes, you are aware, first of all, Lucian, my dear friends that I know you for a long, long, long period of time. Superior presentation. Thank you so much. I will take this presentation and will definitely offer to my management. It's my workplace to hire you as a consultant. Okay, with such credentials. Okay, listen, you are already not only USA but international professional already. I believe since the presentation was just posted and not too much, too much questions I see here on the screen, I would suggest that who is actually currently connected, please ask the question directly to Lucian. Okay, I would like to thank you very, very much. Tremendous presentation. Every time we learn something new. Great job.
I do have a question, Lucian, because we have a few minutes. Oh, and Miriam does. Miriam, you please go ahead first.
Mine isn't so much of a question as a thank you, because this topic is so important. People can't learn, they can't connect without the mental health aspect. And I think it's wonderful that you went through that training, because there's a real need, not just in colleges, but all over. So I want to thank you for that beautiful presentation. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Any other questions? Well, I wanted to ask you, big picture, being on the university campus, what shift are you seeing in your students these days in terms of receptivity to this approach? And have you seen a change over time? Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant question. Thank you, Nan. I'm very sensitive to the students that we have. As I don't know, most teachers may recognize, I don't know at the university setting, I think students are not treated fairly. I think a university these days, I don't know how it's like around the world, but in the United States, they're just a front for like business that other people do. A lot of the teachers they don't really care to teach or to really connect to students. And so I think the students are lost. And I think because as teachers, we're not doing our jobs, students are very depressed and sad. And when you do offer them an integration, like when I talk to them about green chemistry and say, oh my goodness, this is how it relates to the environment. This is how it relates to society, to finances. And then God help me if I do mention spirit, I have to be careful, right? But I do it in a different way. I feel the students really light up, because they really want to see this, why am I spending thousands of dollars to be here just to learn an equation, right? So I think integrated education is absolutely essential. I'm at a service university or a land grant university where we're supposed to teach students from the state of North Carolina how to be good members of society, and we're not doing a good job. And so integral education is absolutely essential. Great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Such a moving and heartwarming answer. All right, friends, any other questions? Otherwise, Lucian will take off this hat and put on his hat as moderator again to introduce our next guest.
Awesome. That was beautiful.
All right. Thank you, Lucian.
Thank you, Nan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's a beautiful group, and I'm happy to be here. So next, we're doing well. It looks like we are going to go to presentation right after Olga. Presentation 4. The next presentation is from the humanities department. It looks like the department is known for its foundational research in humanities and sciences and its support for integral thinking across all social disciplines. Its members engage interdisciplinary research, learning, aimed at better understanding the world and applying this methodology based on all the laws that we've been talking about today. We are fortunate to have with us Miss Tatiana Ivonukova, I hope I'm saying that right, Ivonukova, from the Humanities Department, who will be presenting the work on Humanities Department's book, Nature, Children Ages 3 to 6. She's an artist, really good artist, I'm told, 40 years of experience, who lives and works in Prague, a member of the Union of Arts of Russia, the International Association of Arts, IWRI, AIAP, UNESCO, theater and cinema stage director or designer for more than 100 theater shows in Russia, Czech Republic, and Germany, movie set costume designer for 5 movies, and she's also a writer. She has published 2 books, had personal exhibitions in Frankfurt, Germany, on Main, and Rothenburg. A BA in Fine Arts, a KA from Savitsky College of Penza, Russia. Her book is part of the Humanities Department experimental work in the field of non-formal education as a part of lifelong learning. Her presentation will highlight her book's role in promoting evolutionism, consciousness, worldwide view among children, and its impact on the formation of their values and attitudes. Wow, sounds really, really cool. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Ms. Tatiana Evunukova.
My art name Tatiana Irbis. Ivanyukova, I'm in passport.
I'm so sorry. Please, the floor is yours, Tatiana.
And friends, well, just to make sure we have a translator for Tatiana. Tatiana, are you able to unmute, and we'll make sure our translators are all ready.
What you would like to translate this movie?
Oh, you go ahead, speak in Russian, and our translators will speak in English and translate for you. Thank you.
Okay, what do you want to translate this video clip or what? So we start video clip.
Вы свою презентацию начинайте. Да, Татьяна, это ваше время. Начинайте презентацию, вас будет переводить.
Хорошо, ладно, презентацию. А я жду, когда клип покажет. Ладно. Я хочу сказать, что вот идея этого проекта была.
I want to say that the idea of this project was.
I'd like to say that
I was thinking.
The idea for this project came to me from the interaction with the children and their
at the
parents
seashore,
in the park, on the seashore.
And I also
I realized that I need to talk to them.
And then
so
I wrote this text and make
this
drawings.
Little essay.
I
made a
students
drawing.
helped me.
Oh, thank you. I will just interrupt. We have the benefit of 2 translators right now from the Russian.
So I will mute Natalie.
Okay, so Elisa will be muting, and we will get to continue with Natalie. Thank you for it, friends.
Oh, I'm sorry, friends. Thank you so much.
Tatiana, please continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my friend Marketa, she's 10, and the other one is 7 years old. They helped me with the text, and they helped me with the drawing. The grandmother of the children also helped. So my first draft was a little bit too straightforward, so she softened the what I wrote, and it came out wonderful. What we wanted to achieve is that the parents and children would talk on this subject, but it didn't really turn out that way. We had some technical difficulties, but we plan to publish a book with illustrations, and so we will distribute it to adults and the children. So we worked on that clip. Children of my friends, they started to explain to all their friends how to treat the animals correctly, how to interact with them in a gentle, correct way. And so they came up with the next project. It will be about how to behave in the woods, that you cannot really ignite the fire and leave it there. What to do if you find a little bird or a little animal in the woods? What to do if you encounter sick, wounded animal? So we wrote that scenario. So we're going to continue with that in the next film. How to treat the plants, how to cherish all the flora and fauna. So this is our collective effort. And I'm glad that the next movie is going to be written by somebody else. I'm just going to be a producer of that next movie. Thank you so much. So who will put the clip on?
Oh, are
We'll
you
need
able
to see
to?
the clip.
Are you able to share the clip yourself, Tatiana? Otherwise,
I have a clip on desktop.
okay, it'll take just a few minutes. I will pull up that clip.
Они переводили этот клип. Исмин, может быть, может.
They translated the clip for me. Maybe Jasmine could put it on. I have it on my desktop.
She said Jasmine has a clip. Who has a clip? А кому вы отдали, Таня?
Жасмин работала над клипом, и она...
Jasmine worked on that clip. She may have it.
Jasmine? I don't know.
Nan, do you have this opportunity to?
Yes, I will look for the link to that clip. In the meantime, tell us more about the illustrations that we're going to be seeing, please.
Клип есть на Фейсбуке, если набрать Татьяна Ирбис.
This clip I actually posted on Facebook. If you type Tatiana Irbis there, you will see my clip on the Facebook.
I believe I have success.
Naučili jsme se, jak milovat stvořitele. Také řekl, že láska ke stvoření znamená chtít stvoření.
We don't see anything.
No, what? Maybe I will show tomorrow. Give me time. I lost my children.
I believe I found it. If you stop the share, I will pull up.
Co je nám drahé o přírodu.
All right.
Vidíte něco malého, třeba motýla nebo berušku, prosím, nedotýkejte se jich svýma rukama. Mis můžete zranit, slomit mu křidélko nebo nožičku. Mis poté uhyne. Lepší je nechat ho odletět.
We don't see any picture. We don't see any video.
Tatiana, if you can please stop the share.
Татьяна, выключите свой share, выключите, не делитесь экраном, и тогда Нан поставит нам, хорошо? Спасибо.
Jste u moře.
Maybe I'll try to share this movie. Just a moment.
Moudrý muž řekl, když dosáhneme lásky ke stvořením, naučili jsme se, jak milovat stvořitele. Také řekl, že láska ke stvořením znamená chtít stvoření milovat, nikoli aby ona milovala mě. Jak se chováme k přírodě? Učíme se z maličkostí, staráme se o to, co je nám drahé, o přírodu. Když uvidíte něco malého, třeba motýla nebo berušku, prosím, nedotýkejte se jich svýma rukama. Hmyz můžete zranit, slomit mu křidélko nebo nožičku. Hmyz poté uhyne. Lepší je nechat ho odletět a radovat se ze sluníčka a nebe. Tento hmyz je součástí přírody, která nás obklopuje a je živý. Narodil se a touží žít. Jednou za život, když nastane léto, narostou mravencům křídla a mohou létat. Vyšplhají se ze svých domečků, protože už se z křídly dovnitř nevejdou. Lezou po zemi a nemohou přijít na to, co se s nimi děje. Z křídly vypadají jako mravenčí andělé. Někteří mravenci to pochopí a začnou létat. Někteří jsou zmatení. Mravenci mají v tento den svatbu. Příroda jim jednou za život dá možnost létat a mít děti. Létání je pro ně složité, protože dosud létat neuměli, jen lezli po zemi. Když takový mravenec letí a přistane na vás, nezabíjejte ho, prosím, ale jemně ho setřeste ze své ruky. Když jste u moře, ať už na prázdninách nebo u něj žijete, najít kraby v mělké vodě je hračka. Kraby žijí v rodinách a když jednoho kraba vezmete, zničíte a rozbijete rodinu. Jsou malincí a neumí vám vzdorovat. Když odnesete kraba, třeba v plastikovém sáčku, budete si s ním hrát a pak vás to přestane bavit. Možná by stačilo je jen pozorovat ve vodě a pak se přesunout k něčemu jinému. Co takhle hrát si s míčem? Nebo postavit hrad z písku? Často vidíme v parcích nebo na břehu řek ceduly: nekrmte ptáky chlebem. Nejlepší je ptáky nekrmit vůbec. Měli by si najít potravu ve svém přirozeném prostředí. Samozřejmě, že chléb jim moc chutná, ale na jejich zdraví má špatný vliv. Když se krmí chlebem, deformují se jim klouby, mladým nenarostou správně křídla a ptáci nakonec nemohou létat. Místo pečiva jim raději přineste ovesné vločky, kukuřici, hrách nebo najemno nasekanou mrkev. Své děti moc milujeme. Z lásky k nim je musíme naučit přivyknout si na zákony našeho světa, přírodní zákony. Pokud dítě pochopí, že je nutné chránit životy malých stvoření, ptáků, plazů, hmyzu a jiných, nebude mít touhu zabít živou bytost, až vyroste. Vychovejme z něj dobrého člověka.
Okay.
А надо перевести, рассказать о чем, или так понятно все?
Ну скажите, есть же переводчики, скажите, что это дети нарисовали, написали, скажите.
Please let us know, please, what was in the clip. Well, first was a quote from Brav about the nature. And then we explained that little insects are also alive beings. And everything is so tiny that if you break a leg or any other part of that animal, the animal will die. The crabs in the sea, you don't need to touch them. Just leave them be, because you will break the family this way, the crab's family. So maybe you could engage yourself in different activities, like build a castle from the sand. It's very important to know how you feed the birds with what. Like if you feed them with bread, then they will suffer. And so there was a drawing how to feed birds with what nourishment. So this is the clip. So the conclusion was that if parents will support that kind attitude of children towards alive things, then they won't do that not only when they're children, but when they grow up. Thank you so much. The question, where can I buy the book? Yes, we have this published in a small amount. Please send us the address and we will send it to you. Do you have it in English? We're going to print it and check, and we do have English translation for it. Yes, we will do it in English.
You send the address, they will send it to you, the book. Thank you.
Beautiful. So, Ernest, do we have any questions or we continue?
I believe that we should continue.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like Tatiana has more or less ended the session. I'm really happy to have this first day with you all. Really proud to be part of this family, learning as much as we did about integral education. I want to just say that the folks that you see, many of them here on the screen, they've shown tremendous dedication over the last couple of months to really work hard to bring these people together, get them involved, and provide you with all this content. To everybody that came, thank you so much. I'm really proud that you were able to share with us this and your patience with the, what do you call, the Zoom bombers. Thank you so much. We got that taken care of. Thank you for your patience. This has been the spirit of integration, right? It's been very collaborative. I feel we've all learned something. They tell me that you can rewatch this. It's going to be available on IWRI's YouTube channel. I'll be posted later. I guess that's all really. Tomorrow is another day. It starts up tomorrow. Let's see. And then finally, I think that's all. Am I missing anything else? Okay. If not, then I'm going to turn it over to the dear director, Professor Ephraim Eliav, who I might as well add, I'm hoping to see in the next few months, if not shorter. I have a chance to go to Israel, and Professor Eliav has been helping me. So I look forward to seeing you sometime soon, Professor. Back to you.
Thank you very much, dear Lucian. I also participate in your visit to Israel very much. So the first day of our conference has finished. And I would like to thank all of you for making it integral, for making it really very sensitive. And I'd like to really give a special thing for our organization committee. This committee includes few our outstanding friends: Valentina Ilganaeva, Jasmine Flum, Katie Pirello, Victoria Lee. Well, I would like also to thank our translation team: Sergei Tokubayev, Natalie Kalugin, Alisa Kogan, And I also have a special thanks for our broadcasting team, Nan Brez, Pavel Sviridenko, and Ernst Iskovich, and also for our great moderators, Lucia and Gianni Parmes. Thank you very much, friends, and hopefully we will meet tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Ephraim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Well done.
Goodbye.